There was a trend coming into last night's game that Lamar Jackson was 13-1 against the spread as an underdog. But Patrick Mahomes owns this trend, now 5-1 against Lamar in his career. All right, let's break down this game with our guys, Brinson and John Breech. Brinson, I'm going to give you first word. That was a fun game to watch last night. What stood out to you?
Well, Tommy, if that is a precursor for the 2024 NFL season, we are in for a treat. I think two things, if I may, one from each side here, and I hope I steal both of Breech's talking points so he has to scramble and find new ones. One, the Ravens' offensive line is a work in progress, and they really need to figure things out on that front. I do think we can give them a little bit of leeway. It's, transition in terms of the guys who are there. It is all homegrown guys, some from early round picks, some from later round picks, going up against Chris Jones in a nasty pass rush from Kansas City, but certainly something to be concerned about. And Lamar had to run too much. We can touch on that as well. But then for the KC side, I wrote about this for CBS Sports.com, and it didn't come to fruition completely per se in the sense of the Chiefs lighting up the sky with fireworks a la the 2007 Patriots. But the addition of Xavier Worthy is going to give this offense a dimension it has lacked since Tyreek Hill was traded to the Miami Dolphins. We saw his first touch, and it wasn't even a pass. But this guy, the speed is real, and the route running is there as well. 2 touchdowns in his debut. He is going to make life so difficult for defenses because now Rashee Rice can just eat underneath while Worthy is going up top. And look at me, guard that. Go ahead and guard that while Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce are just chunking up underneath. So I think those two things really stood out to me from each side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Worthy was an absolute stud. We saw him score 2 touchdowns. But you know what, Brinson? I'm the special teams guy. I knew you wouldn't bring up a special teams point. So I'm going to bring up real quick Justin Tucker. He is the last person you ever thought you would have to be concerned about with the Baltimore Ravens, but we saw him go out, miss a 53-yard field goal. Sure, it's long range, but he's Justin Tucker. It's a kick you expect him to make. And the trend here is that he's now just 1 of 6 on his past 7 attempts from 50 yards or beyond. So you're talking about, we never talk about Justin Tucker struggling, and now it's something that is at least in the back of your head if you're John Harbaugh. We know that John Harbaugh implicitly trusts his kicker. Justin Tucker has made so many good kicks. He has been hands down the best kicker in the NFL for over a decade now. But now you're getting to the point where if there's a 56-yard field goal to be tried and it's 4th and 4, do you go for it or do you kick it? And I think that's John Harbaugh's going to start thinking about this stuff a little bit more. And then the penalties. The NFL just needs to crack down. Don't crack down on cracking down. I don't want to see all the illegal formation calls. It just slows the game down. I don't think any of these were egregious. All it did was upset people. So no more penalties. I don't want to see the illegal formation penalties.
Yeah, that flooded the first quarter, the bunch of Ronnie Stanley illegal formations that came out there in everybody's timeline. It'll be interesting to see, guys. Skinny Lamar, by the way, and if that affects his availability during a very busy season. All right, we do have a game tonight. It's in Sao Paulo. This will be the last time I do my Vin Diesel. Brazil! We get Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a short spread, Brinson, with 2 teams that could be in a NFC championship game when it's all said and done. Give me your thoughts here.
Well, first of all, it's disappointing that CBS is willing to dump slime on my head on television, but won't send me to Brazil just to watch a football game. I mean, what are we doing here? Come on, somebody step up and get me and Breech down there.
Wow.
Secondly, I think this is such a fascinating game because both the Eagles and the Packers are considered Super Bowl contenders on the NFC side of the bracket. And Philly has been there in recent years, but there's been so much turnover. They lose Shane Steichen. They go in-house with the coordinators. That blows up last year. They melt down after that San Francisco loss. And now they bring in Vic Fangio and of course, Kellen Moore. Jason Kelsey's out. Fletcher Cox is out. There's just a lot of turnover here, but the core does remain the same. And I'm very curious to see how quickly they adjust. And then for Green Bay, halfway through the season, 10 weeks through the season, GM Brian Gutekunst was talking about how he didn't know if Jordan Love was the franchise quarterback or not. And then the final 9 weeks of the season, Love puts together what would have been a unanimous MVP campaign if you extrapolate it over 17 weeks. So I wonder, what are we going to get from the Eagles early with all the changes? And what are we going to get from Jordan Love, the good or the bad, the yin or the yang of Jordan Love?
I thought it was funny that Tommy mentioned Vin Diesel here, because as the guy who was in a movie with Vin Diesel that took place in Brazil, I like to consider myself the Brazilian expert here at CBS Sports. So the one thing I will say, it's been interesting with the storylines around the game, where half the Eagles players out here complaining about the fact they have to go down there. You're already a head case behind here. We've heard Darius Slay talk about it. We've heard A.J. Brown talk about it. But obviously all that talk's going to end because the game kicks off tonight and they're going to be at the stadium and they don't have to worry about anything at this point. But the Packers have to worry about something because they have a 2-hour bus ride to the game. So there's been all these little things. But once the game actually kicks off, this is a fascinating matchup because, as Brinson mentioned, you have Jordan Love, who is so hot down the stretch, and is that going to translate into week 1 of this season? And he gets to go up against an Eagles secondary that absolutely struggled last year, gave up the second most passing yards in the NFL. They're hoping that Vic Fangio can kind of fix that and kick it into shape and slow down the bleeding that was going on from last season. And then when you look at the Eagles on the offensive side of the ball, they brought in their big free agent star, Saquon Barkley, and they're going to expect a lot of them, especially tonight, because they're going up against a Packers defense that couldn't stop the run last year. So I love the offensive matchups on both sides of the ball, and I think that Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley could both end up having big games.
I feel like I've heard this before, though. You have an IMDb credit there with Vin Diesel, Breech?
He was in Fast and the Furious. It's Fast and the Furious 7, right? I mean, dead serious. Is it 5? It's Fast and the Furious 5.
Fast 5. Hey, there it is. So, Breech, since that's going to be the case, I'm going to throw right back at you with the Bengals. Jamar Chase still trying to get that deal done. T. Higgins maybe a little bit banged up. By the way, on Chase, a game-time decision. What's going on in Cincy right now?
Yeah, this is an absolutely bizarre situation. That Jamar Chase is 100% healthy. He's apparently put himself on the injured list, even though he's not injured, and made himself a game-time decision. So no one in Cincinnati knows what's going to happen here. And I thought during his interview today that one of the most interesting things he said is that the Bengals approached him about extending a contract. This wasn't him going to them and demanding, hey, look, you need to give me an extension or I'm not going to play this year. So it feels like once that happened, and once the Bengals opened the door in these negotiations, that Jamar Chase just assumed a deal was going to get done. And now that it hasn't, time is running out here. There's less than 48 hours until the Bengals kick off. And he seems pretty serious about the fact that he might not go out there if a contract is not done. So this really is a bizarre situation. I mean, it's something where you just got to get it done. You're losing the purse strings. I know the Bengals have a history of being frugal, which I'm sure Brinson will bring up happily, but there's no reason to have this drama. You have the T. Higgins injury now, the hamstring thing you're worrying about. You need to have someone out there to help Joe Burrow, so just get the deal done with Jamar Chase.
I think I nearly got caught Googling John Breech, IMDb Fast and the Furious 5. Hopefully Noah can get that credit up and post it before we get out of here. I think there's a lot of cause for concern. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this particular game, because the Bengals are the biggest favorite on the board. They're going to be picked by 40+% of survivor leagues to beat the Patriots, who look like a terrible football team. But Jamar Chase has said he's going to be limited. And T. Higgins, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Breech, I don't actually remember T. Higgins getting hurt. All of a sudden, this guy who's mad about his franchise tag, probably not thrilled that Jamar Chase can't get a deal, is injured as well. And so it feels very ominous for the Bengals. They finally, for the first time since they get Joe Burrow in the draft, go into the season where he's not either a rookie or injured coming into the year, and they've got all this drama with these two good wide receivers, one who's a first-round pick and one who's an early second-round pick. Like, you got Joe Burrow. You gave him his bag. Pay his receivers. I know that it's not easy, but you can get 10% private equity next year. Go out and get Skyline Chili to fund you and to pay these wide receivers. Do whatever you have to do. You cannot let Jamar Chase come into the season, a potential Super Bowl season, unhappy. It's just very... I don't know, man. Cut the check if I'm Mike Brown.
All right, guys. Certainly appreciate it. Interesting with Chase, of course, a couple years left on his deal. Our thanks to Will Brinson and John Breech. Guys, he's got it up ready. On hand in the bookshelf. I knew it was somewhere.
It's got to be close.
So we might end up seeing Justin Fields after all this weekend when the Steelers visit the Falcons. Russell Wilson dealing with a calf injury that he first suffered on the first day of training camp. News of said calf has reemerged this week when Wilson was limited in practice Thursday with calf tightness. All right, let's bring back John Breech and Will Brinson. Breech, I'll have you go first here. So whether it's going to be Wilson and perhaps Justin Fields, do you view that as the same, or do you favor one over the other? AKA, if Fields is in, is that a downgrade or an upgrade in your opinion?
I think in this exact situation, putting Justin Fields in is an absolute upgrade. I don't even know why you would think about playing Russell Wilson. If this was, hey, look, Patrick Mahomes has a calf strain and let's maybe play his backup. No, you're playing Patrick Mahomes. There's no question about it. But we're talking about a 35-year-old Russell Wilson who's not very mobile as it is. And it's not like he's been lighting up the league for the past 2 years. He's really been struggling. He didn't wow anyone in training camp. So if he's not 100%, there's no reason to put him out there to maybe make the injury worse, to maybe make, even if he's out there, your offense doesn't look great. Bring out the guy who's 100% healthy, the electrifying quarterback, and see what he has. There's no downside here. So you look at what a calf injury does, too. We all remember the Bengals last season. Joe Burrow was totally immobile for the first 2 weeks trying to play with a calf strain. And now Russell Wilson out there trying to do it just does not seem like a good idea for the Steelers. So if I'm Mike Tomlin, I am giving a hard thought to just starting Justin Fields and letting Russell Wilson heal.
I would honestly say that I think if you read the tea leaves, sort of read between the lines, whatever, cliche you want to use, you can kind of guarantee that Justin Fields is going to start this game, barring something miraculous from Russell Wilson. I mean, it's Friday night, Friday afternoon when we're talking about this, and Russ still isn't really practicing because of that calf injury. I can't remember who it was. I would credit him. I saw it on Twitter, but it was pointed out that the Steelers are notoriously conservative with calf injuries. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a big Steelers thing. But if it's it's a trusted source, and I think given that, and given the way that this is trending, we're going to see Fields. And I think you could make the argument that it's honestly the best case scenario for the Steelers, because if Russell Wilson starts the season and he struggles and he loses in Arthur Smith's revenge game in week 1, he loses in the Sean Payton Russell Wilson revenge game in week 2, people are going to be clamoring for Justin Fields, and you have an awkward situation where you maybe have to bench Russ, but the team's in close games. And I think this way you can kind of just put Fields out there and see what you've got. I think part of the concern for Mike Tomlin is Justin Fields, while electric and fun for fantasy and an incredible athlete when he gets in the open field, is really prone to turning the ball over, particularly when he's passing it. And so I think this team wants to be a run-heavy, play defense, don't turn it over, win close games team. I don't know if that's what Justin Fields is built for, and I'm curious what the offense will look like. But I think the Steelers fans can kind of see what they're going to get out of the gate, and then maybe you revert back to Russ if it doesn't work out.
At the very least, I can tell you a lot of Justin Fields on the waiver wire, the CBS Sports app. Our thanks to Will Brinson and John Breech. Guys, certainly appreciate it.